and our tour person, and you get the picture. She does a lot around here. Thank God for Jamie. She wears many hats. She's the activities coordinator as well, and social media coordinator as well. In addition, Jamie is also in the student certification program now, which we're really happy about here at the camp, in mediumship and healing. Her love of history has inspired her to join the ranks of many camp members in keeping the history of our beloved camp alive. So, and I'm so honored to introduce her to you today, and not to only call her my co-worker in a lot of ways, but also my dear friend. And so please join me now in a warm welcome for Jamie Osman.
I love this place. What can I say? Oh, so this is my first time talking at a Sunday service, so you got to bear with me. I'm a little nervous here. A lot of this I'm going to do through inspiration, but I do have my notes to try to keep me on track. So just curious, and you can kind of answer this to yourself because we're in a big group, but what did you want to be when you grew up? Think about that, and think about how many times that changed. And then think about, did that actually come true for you? Because I think for the majority of us, it didn't. We found different paths. We found different ways. We found that what we wanted wasn't necessarily the best thing for us. But they were dreams. And they were dreams to be had and to hold on to. But we're taught by society that our goal in life is life mastery. But what does that mean? For most of us, I believe that our directives from our parents were to be doctors, lawyers, clergy, the higher things, shopkeepers. But I was told a long time ago by my therapist in my 20s, and I think everybody should be in therapy, but that's just my thought, that I'll never be able to work for anybody. What? You cannot handle authority. Okay, I'm a Scorpio. I get it. I get it. Jessica gets it. I think all Scorpios get it, But that's what I was taught to do. My mother worked for the state of Florida, retired from the state of Florida. My father was a steel worker up in Pittsburgh. When the steel mills crashed in the early 80s, he went to work for a cable company. Always taught to work for somebody else. That works for most of us. Some of us, it doesn't. But as we're thinking of these things, we're constantly propelled into the future. What are we going to do tomorrow? Oh, I got to go shopping. Oh, I've got to do this. Oh, I've got to do that. But what happens when we're constantly thinking about the future, and I'm very guilty of this. When I try to meditate, my monkey mind goes, as they call it, the monkey mind. Oh, I got to go to Publix after this. Got to do this, got to do that. But that robs us. It robs us of being in the present, of paying attention to what's going on at this moment. But the future doesn't even exist. We never catch up to it because once we try to get there, it just becomes the present. So we're on this constant chase, it seems. When I was 9 years old, my parents divorced. My mother moved me to her home state back to Florida. I was born up in Pittsburgh. But at that point in my life, I never felt as if I fit in again. Ever. I was bullied. I didn't know anybody down here. I had my family. I knew them. But I constantly, and to this day, am in still this fight or flight mode. I constantly wake up every day with pits in my stomach of what's going to happen. Am I going to be able to handle this? What do I have to do next? But what I've understood from, lessons that I've learned in classes here and trying to gain my spirituality is, what does it matter? I mean, you have to do things. You have to get things done. But by constantly thinking and worrying about that, stress levels go up. Your sense of identity What is it? What you're thinking about in the future hasn't even happened yet. So if you're basing your identity on that, that's not really your identity, is it? Not really. It's what you hope it to be, but it's not really your identity. So it gets you out of balance. But the paradox of it all is that you never do experience a sense of time. When you ask, where is the time is always in the present. The past is gone. Can't do anything about that anymore. The future hasn't happened. What control do you have in that? All you have is the here and the now. So I'm learning to trust that. I'm learning to be okay with that, because I think with me living in the future, what is it I'm going to do next? I'm not paying attention to the beauty around me, to the messages that the universe is showing me on a day-to-day basis, because I'm too worried about over there. So I try to bring it back to where I'm just me and I'm just being. So I want to try something with everybody. And I find this to be very uncomfortable because I don't know how to be. I don't know how to just be. So I think for a minute, what I want to try to do is for all of us to just be. Just sit in the silence. Don't think about anything. Try not to think about anything. See if you can do it. So I'm going to start the clock and I want to give it a minute. All right, so we're going to go right now. That was possibly the longest minute ever, wasn't it? So who thought about their shopping list? I'll tell you what I thought about. I thought about, oh my God, these people are going to find this so boring. So even in that moment of being, I find myself just off in all kinds of directions, right? I think it's our nature. You know, I was raised to be taught, and I'm sure a lot of you have heard this, idle hands are the devil's tool. You should always stay busy, always. Even watching TV, my aunt taught me, even if you're watching TV, write letters to the veterans. Crochet, do something, don't let it go to waste. That robbed me of a lot, I think. I think that we should sit still. You know, we have to do, like I said, we have to do, but I think that we should sit still in the silence, because that's when I think the brilliance comes to us, is in that silence. Being must be felt. It cannot be touched. It's a feeling. It's a state of being. People talk of manifesting or the power of intention, but how does that relate to the power of now? Even in manifesting, you're thinking of the future. Intention, you're thinking of the future. Again, not saying that we don't have to do these things, but there needs to be a balance, I believe. So what is the difference between wanting or needing the next thing? Think about that. I say that to my kids. Okay, you want an iPhone, but do you need an iPhone? Let's think about this. Because I think we all have wants, but they're not necessarily what's best for us. The universe likes to create. We all know that. It creates millions of things every day. Some of them get gobbled up by each other. Other things don't get gobbled up by each other. Things are created by the universe in the earth, in the water, in the air, in outer space, constantly in a state of creation. but it also likes to create conflict. Without conflict, there's no balance. Everything's great, everything's wonderful. I mean, that sounds wonderful. But we embody these things as humans. We love to create, but we also, whether we admit it or not, kind of like conflict a little bit. It makes things exciting. Takes us out of our box. There is a limit to my conflict that I like, though, and I'm pretty sure everybody else is too. But it likes outward movement. It has that ebb and flow to it, and it likes to be out there doing things, but it also likes to return. It likes to go back to the source. And this is where all things spiritual lie, is in that return, in that being, in that stillness, in that learning of things. So what does it mean to trust the universe? Going back to the dream of when you were little, my dream was to be a singer. Olivia Newton-John was my idol. Oh, that woman could do no wrong. She still can't do any wrong. God bless her. I was a gospel singer in my 20s. Many of you know that. I had a record deal in the making. I was diagnosed with social anxiety. Turned out I was just empathic. Was put on medication for social anxiety. Was taught that I couldn't handle the stress. Something was wrong with me. So what happened is I had sung at a festival in a small town somewhere in the Panhandle. I forget exactly where it was. But the next morning, everybody in the McDonald's recognized me. And they wanted me to get on a table and sing. And I thought, oh my, if this is how I'm going to be treated, being a little fish in a little fish in a big pond, or a big fish in a little pond, rather. I think it's a big fish in a little pond. If I do get a record deal and say something happens with that, am I going to be able to handle that? I didn't trust myself because I was put on this medication because I was told there's something wrong with you. You have social anxiety. So I put the brakes on everything. Can't do it. I can't do it. So I quit. And I didn't sing for many years in the public until I got here. And then I started singing again. Now, do I think I ruined what should have been for me? No, I don't. I don't. There was a conflict in there. There definitely was a conflict in there. And the universe was trying to tell me, I don't think we want you in this direction yet. Or we don't want you going that far at all or yet. And I'm fine with that. I'm perfectly fine with that. Sometimes we think we have everything laid out for us, that we know exactly where we're going, how we're going to do it, where we're going to land at this time, our life plans. And then before we know it, the rug gets pulled out from under us. And we're screaming, why? Why? When I was 15, my dream was to own a farm and have 20 kids. I know why. Why? Thank goodness Spirit had other plans for me. Because if I would have had it my way and I would have fought hard and long for that, I don't even want to think about it. But I have 2 kids now. I was a late mom. I had them when I was 38 and 40, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. Spirit knew better than I did. And Spirit always does, always. But again, we're taught that we're broken. We're taught that something's wrong. So it constantly propels us into this future. Kara had shared an article with me yesterday, and I had heard about this, but I had totally forgotten, so I was thankful that she did. And it was an art form, that Japanese art form. Let me see, I know I have my notes on this somewhere. It's called kintsugi, and it means gold stitching. So what it is they take broken pieces of pottery and they put them back together with lacquer, and they dust them with silver and gold. So there's an obvious vein in there as to where it was broken. But they don't look at this as a fault. They look at this as an art form. That broken piece is part of its history. It embraces it as beauty. Still loved, even with the perceived fault. We are the same. We all have our travels. We all have our trials. We all have our lessons in life, and all of us are broken in one way or another. But instead of feeling like that's wrong, embrace it. It's part of you. It's part of your history. It's part of what's made you, what's brought you to where you are. Don't let anybody tell you that that's bad. It's beautiful. So we have to sit. We have to learn to sit and trust the universe, that they know he knows what he's doing. Spirit knows what they're doing. I mean, how many times? So it reminded me also of a poem. I know I was raised in a very Christian background. I'm pretty sure quite a few of us are. And this poem I read many years ago, and it's probably one that many of you have heard. But I go back to it many, many times because I'm an A personality. And I absolutely love to be in control. So when there's something I want to keep it. I want to go to the universe. No, you're wrong. I'm going to do this. And the universe, as Oprah Winfrey once described it, will hit you upside the head softly and be like, no, 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 no. But if you don't listen, they're going to keep hitting you harder and harder and harder until you get the 2x4 upside the head. And then you're like, okay, fine. You know, but I'm going to leave you with this poem because I really think it says a lot about who we are and what our mind process is and how we need to change this. Because I think that we will all be more at peace when we learn to be and to let the universe guide us. So this is called Let Go and Let God. As children bring their broken toys with tears for us to mend, I brought my broken dreams to God. Pardon me if I get emotional, it sometimes makes me cry. Oh. I brought my broken dreams to God because I thought he was my friend. But instead of leaving him to work in peace alone, I hung around and tried to help with ways that were my own. At last I snatched them back and I said, how could you be so slow? My child, he said, what could I do? You never did let go. Learn to let go. The universe has bigger plans than we could ever imagine for us. Trust in that. Thank you.